Okay, should be going. So segment bisectors is our lesson today. Okay, I think that's the first page. All right, as far as notes. Midpoint is our first term today. And what's it sound like midpoint probably is? The point in the middle? Yeah, that's what it is. Midpoint is the point on a segment that divides it into two congruent segments. What does congruent mean? It says two congruent segments. That means two segments that are the same length, correct? The point on a segment that divides it into two congruent segments. So adding a picture to go with midpoint. Here's a segment. Here's a point. If I put tick marks on each half there to show that I want those both to be the same, that indicates that it's a midpoint. So we'll call this A, this B, we'll put M at the midpoint. Okay, the next term is segment bisector. A segment bisector is something more than just a point. So notice it says it's a segment, a ray, line, or even plane that intersects a segment at its midpoint. So to draw a picture, we still need to indicate where the midpoint is. But then to do a segment bisector, you need to draw like a line going through the midpoint. So your picture would look like up above. Those two are the same. Now draw a segment, a ray, a line, or a plane through that. A plane's kind of hard to do. I'll just do a line. It doesn't really matter what the slant of that line is. That blue line is bisecting the segment. Okay, so the blue line is a segment bisector. It's cutting the segment in half. How do we know it's cutting it in half? It's going through the midpoint. I've got the tick marks to indicate. Okay, then the last term, bisect a segment. If I want to bisect a segment, I am going to divide the segment into two congruent segments. So that's why segment bisector cuts it in half. So if we're going to bisect something, we're going to cut it exactly in half. So intersect just means that they cross, they have something in common. So bisect is a little bit more specific intersection because it cuts the segment exactly in half. Divide the segment into two congruent segments. So if I were making a picture of that, it would be the same pictures that are already up there, so I'm just not drawing it again. Anyone still need the notes? Okay. I want you to find the segment bisector and midpoint of a segment. How could this be done? I'm going to give you a sheet of paper here that you can see through and you can write on and you can do different things. I want you to draw a segment on here and then figure out how to bisect it. That's a way you can determine cutting it in half. And you've got your tools there. I want you to draw a nice straight segment with a straight edge of some kind. So create a segment on your paper. What? We'll call that segment AB. And then I want to see what you're brainstorming what your creativity is. You want to bisect that segment. You want to find its midpoint. What's a way you could find its midpoint? Okay. Is that starting? Okay. Oh, yeah, looks like you could.
What's this rank? Do you know where room 118 is?
118 is, I think Mrs. or Dr. Bruning's room. I think that's what it is.
Carrie, give me like that.
You did?
I don't know.
Let's see, now 118 is Mrs. Brower.
Okay.
17 is Dr. Bruning.
So where's Mrs. Brown?
Right across there.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, I don't have her.
It's like I'm a little young for this stuff.
Okay, so what are some ways? Tom's saying that he drew a length that happened to be 3 inches when he measured with his ruler. So how can he find half of that?
1.5.
Yeah, 1.5, so he's taking the 3 inches and dividing that by 2. Morgan? Okay, so you've seen the construction? Okay, so she has a construction to do. A few of you know that construction. What's another way?
I drew a straight line across and then I folded the paper in half.
So you made your segment as long as the paper is wide.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if I have a segment here that's not as wide as the paper, could I fold it?
Well, no, well, you could, but it'd be more tricky.
How would I fold it?
You would
get-
fold the corners together.
Endpoints together.
Yeah, you fold the endpoints
So
together.
point A and point B, I need to line up?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I would line those up, you can kind of see through this paper. And crease it there. That crease would be the bisector again also. Okay, so we've come up with 3 different ways that you could find a midpoint. Now, the one that I do want to have you do is I need to show you the construction. But if this whole thing was 3 inches, you said each would be 1.5, 1.5. What if the whole thing were 10 inches?
5 and 5.
5 inches, 5 inches. What if it were 4.8?
Well, that's just
2.4.
2.4, 2.4. So to find how long it is, if you know the total
You just
length, you can just divide
chop
that
it
by
in
2
half.
also. All right, let's do the construction idea. We haven't done a construction yet in this class. So what I'm talking about on a construction is it's a drawing that is done with limited tools, and they're a compass and a straight edge. For the straight edge, we will typically use a ruler. So why don't I just call it a ruler?
because it can be anything that has a straight edge.
Right, because you are not measuring with it.
What if it's a meter stick?
Right. So a straight edge is just something that has a straight side to it. We are not using the markings to measure. We're just using it to connect points. So get out your compass, the one that would draw arcs. And then your straight edge, let's get your ruler out. We'll use the side of the ruler as a straight edge. We're going to do a technique to bisect the segment. Okay, in your notes, you probably should label segment, bisector, and midpoint. We actually will create both when we do this construction. Okay, on your notes, go down an inch or so and then draw a segment. Call that A and this B. We're going to use the compass to help us find where the midpoint is. Now, we're not going to set the compass and go back and forth from the ends to see if we guessed exactly what halfway was, but we're going to kind of do that type of thing just with arcs. Is everybody ready to watch on the board? Okay, if you could look up here, please. Your compass needs to be big enough or bigger than what you think halfway is. It's better to go too far out rather than not far enough. Okay, so look at your drawing there, how long you made your segment. Set your compass at more than half of it. Just estimating where you think it's going to be. Well, don't measure there. Let me see. Don't measure. Oh, you don't have a segment. I thought you were measuring that. Your segment way out. Where's your? All right, now watch what I do with the arcs. Okay, I'm going to go from point A and swing an arc, and when I pick it up, I'm not going to change it. I'll go from point B and do the same arc. Okay, now your two arcs have to cross. You have to have 2 points before you can lay down your straight edge and connect them. So did they cross? Kind of. Just a little bit longer. On a construction, it is important that you do the technique correct, so you're not guessing where any points are at. So Ben has to extend his arcs a little bit to really make them cross. All right, so now if you will connect this crossing point and this crossing point, lay your straight edge right beside them. So then when you draw, your pencil lead goes through those crossing points. That line you draw is a segment bisector. It cuts the segment exactly in half. And the point where that line crosses your segment, this is your midpoint. I'm going to label, that's my midpoint. And then the line is your segment bisector. All right, so that I can see you do that a second time, let's have you draw a segment. Don't make it horizontal. Give it a slant. And do the segment bisector construction. It could be, I'll sample if you want. So I have a chance to get around and look at everybody. So do this a second time. If your compass is kind of loose, I do have some screwdrivers in order to tighten the screw. If the pencil lead is dull, you've got a pencil sharpener. Just take the pencil out, sharpen it, and put the pencil back in. That needs to go further down, obviously, to get it across. How's that work on my iPad? You might actually practice on paper or somewhere, so we can make sure that when it comes to a test, that you can actually use that. That's where it is, most of it off the paper. simply bisecting the segment. As long as the part where they crossed is okay. If it went weird in between there, I would redo it, but. Okay, looks like that's mastered. So just in case they're following me on the computer, that's your construction. You went from A and B, do the same arc from each end. Now connect those 2 points in order to make the segment bisector and midpoint. All right, so let's do a little figuring. Find the unknown segment lengths. Looks like on the first one I don't know AM and MC. Okay. So find AM, find MC. On this one, find RS and RT. Jaden, what's AM? 9. MC? How much? 9 again. You're just simply taking the 18 and dividing it by 2 because you need half of it here, half of it here. All right, next picture. RS, Ben. What was the length of RS?
14.
14. How did you know that?
Because the same exact length on the side.
Yep, the tick marks indicated that those are the same length. And then RT, Ben,
R2 28.
is 28. And you got that by probably adding 14 and 14 or taking 14 times 2. So what is the location S called? Midpoint. Okay. How about this one? Find what X is. And then the segment lengths, DE and DF. So figure out X, DE, and DF. Pay attention to the markings. See the tick marks in the picture? Morgan, what did the tick marks mean? Are they quarter marks, like a fourth of it? No, not necessarily. It just means those segments are congruent. So ED is the same length as EF. Notice EF is 36. So DE has to be 36 also. So what I'm thinking is that 9x has to equal 36. You need them to be the same length. How do we solve it, Tim? 5 by 9. So x equals 4. And that's one of our answers. Natasha, DE was, okay, DE was 9 times x. What did we just figure out x to be? 4. So DE is going to be 9 times 4, which is 36. And DF, be how long, Allie? 32, how?
You take 36 plus 36.
Okay, 36 plus the other 36, so 72 total. All right, question on that one. Morgan, make sense why we set those equal? Okay. Want each of you to work on this one. Find the value of x and the unknown segment length. This week we'll go back to the first row, here's the second row, third row, your partner's the fourth row. And over here you three. Figure out your answer. Look at the markings in the picture. You see tick marks? LK is supposed to be the same length as LM. That's supposed to be. And let's see, unknown segment lengths are KL and KM. So find X, KL, find KM. Cody, how did you set up to find X?
X minus 14 equals 37.
And added 14. We got X to equal.
27.
I don't think 27, let's see. 7 and 4 is 11. 51? Did you subtract or did you add to solve?
I subtracted.
Yeah, you would add 14 to each side. So X is 51. Dallas, what's KL? And KM? Right. How many got that right? We got a few, but not too many. Questions to ask? No? Okay. Try the next one. Pay attention to the markings. I'll tell you some things that are congruent. I'm looking at the picture. Tell me the segment names. Which segment is 2x plus 5? Segment is 58. Are those equal? Is the same segment? What you wrote here is not true. Let's see, it's the question I just did. 2x plus 5, what segment is that? 58. What segment is that? Are they equal? Okay, 2x plus 5, what segment is that? 58 is. Which segment is equal? It's not the same length as I see it. I've stopped at like 3 different people that set it up wrong, okay? Having 2x plus 5 equals 58 was incorrect. If you set it up that way and I didn't get over here, that's not right, because what segment is 2x plus 5? That's segment AB. There it goes. And the 58 is segment AC. Is AB the same length as AC? No. So that wasn't the right way to set it up. Okay, 58 divided by 2 would be 29. What did we just figure out?
That would be AB altogether.
Okay, AB is 29, BC is 29. Okay, and I hope you're not just guessing numbers and trying them. I hope you're doing the algebra instead. So subtract, so you set it equal to 29 instead of 58. At least if you're doing it this way. There's another way you could do it. Subtract 5, 2x equals 24. Divide by 2, x was 12. And I think we've got every segment figured out because we have 29, 29, and 58 as our answers. You know, I said there's another way. Tiara?
I did it different.
Okay, tell me what you did.
I took 2x plus 5 and I added them together.
What do you mean added them together?
Like I got 4x plus 10.
So you took this twice?
Yeah.
Did you set it equal to something?
Equals
58? Okay, does that make sense? Okay, let's not do the solving yet until we decide if your equation's okay. What's she doing?
Just gonna add AB and BC together.
Okay, so she's not going to this 29 at all, is she? She's just using 58, and since there were tick marks, these two are the same. So if that one's 2x plus 5, this one is 2x plus 5. So she's saying, let's add those 2x plus 5s to get AC. AC is 58. So what she did was correct also. Did you also get x to be 12, Tiara?
Yeah.
So that was fine. She was starting to tell me her solving for x plus 10 equals 58 and so on. So yeah, that way works also. All right, let's go to a graph. You've got some graph paper on the back of your marker boards under your desk. I'm going to give you 2 points and have you tell me the point that you think is the midpoint. Okay, I want you to go to -3, 4 as 1 point. And then 5, 4 as the other. That's my point A and B. I want you to find the midpoint of segment AB. What point divides it exactly in half? Kind of hard to construct on the marker board. I don't know if the marker goes in there or not, but good idea. You're just going to try constructing. Is there another way you can figure it out? Okay, Carrie looks like she counted how many spaces. Okay, she counted how many spaces there were. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is kind of what her work looks like. What's half of 8? 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So right there is her midpoint, which you had what? 1, should be 5. 4, should be 1, 4 for the midpoint. Okay, so probably counting the units, putting half of them on each side could work. Anyone have another technique?
I constructed.
I'm not gonna do yours yet.
I constructed.
Did you construct?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you put it on just normal paper, or how'd you do
No, I
that?
put it on there. I just took the whole thing out.
And did your marker go down in there?
Yeah.
Okay, because Tom was trying to put it down in there and his didn't fit down in. Okay, so that one was possible by constructing or by counting. What if I, since I have room over here, if I go here, let's use the point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So -9. -9, 8 is one end. -9, 3 is the other. The midpoint. Alright, some are constructing, some are counting. This time it was 5 units long, so it's half of 5. Okay, 2.5, so only 2.5. So that midpoint is the point. -9. 5.5? Or 5.5, I'll put the fraction. Alright. Now, how about if I go slanted? Gotta get rid of some of this so I have room. Is there a question on that last one? Alright, get rid of that. And let's do point A as -4, 1. That's A. And then let's go slanted. And B is going to be the point 2, 2. Oh, yes, 2, 3 is what I did. Sorry. 2, 3. What's the midpoint of that segment? That's a little bit harder to do. So here's where I'm going to introduce the formula. We can do a formula to find the midpoint. If you average the x's and average the y's, you will find the point that's exactly halfway. What do I mean by average? We have two things. To average, we would add them and divide by 2. So take the x values. Let's have you right above each one. This is an x and a y. This is an x and a y. This is an x and a y. Let's say these are the x and the y from the first point. These are the x and the y from the second point. So if I say average the x's, that means I need to take -4 plus 2 and divide by 2. What's -4 plus 2? -2. Divided by 2, -1. Now do the y part. 1 plus 3 divided by 2. 1 plus 3 is 4. Divided by 2 is 2. Okay, what I just found were the x needs to be -1, the y has to be 2. So the point -1, 2 as the midpoint. If you go at a slant, you can't really just count the units. So we have a formula that's called the midpoint formula. And it's up to you if you want this first sentence or if you simply want the sentence with the formula. The coordinates of the midpoint of a segment are the averages of the x coordinates and the y coordinates of the endpoints. Which means If you call A the point x1, y1, and B the point x2, y2, the midpoint has this formula. Get the x part, you add the x's and divide by 2. You add the y's and divide by 2. We'll practice a couple more examples and then get to your homework. I'm going to scroll this up a little bit. Is anyone writing that first sentence? So if I go up a little bit, like that's still okay? All right, let's take the point A as -4, 6. B as -2, 16. Come up with the midpoint. What coordinates are the midpoint? Be sure you're adding the x from one point and the x from the other point. Dividing by 2 to get the average. I don't think so. I don't think 12 is right. Okay, I think it would be -4 plus -2 divided by 2, and then 6 plus 16 divided by 2. This was -6 divided by 2, which was -3. And then the other one was 22 divided by 2, so that was 11. Did you get the point -3, 11? Raise your hand if you did. Okay, we got some, but not everybody. Question on it? Okay, let's try another one. Let's make up another point A and B. Okay, give me a point A. Sam? And point B, Tim? 6, 3. Okay, there's your 2 points. Find the midpoint. What point would be exactly halfway in the middle? Okay, watch your signs. -8 plus 6 was -2, divided by 2 should have been -1. And then 2 plus 3 is 5, divided by 2 should have been 2.5. So how many got -1, 2.5? All right. Gotta watch your positives and negatives. All right, I think that was the end. We can check those on a graph to help us know that that's correct. Okay? All right, that midpoint formula is on the wall here, the second formula down. The M and then the parentheses, that's the coordinates of the midpoint. All right, here are the problems that we'll do for tomorrow. Page 56. And I'll look it over quick. I didn't make a note whether you need any construction tools or not. Yeah, you do not need the tools.
She's preparing things for tea. Is that we done, yeah?